was
Just
it
practicing.
practice?
Just practicing.
Good, I didn't do that. Take two. Here we go. This time, the mayor will call to order the regular city council meeting for 6:30 PM Tuesday, May 17th, 2022. City Council Chambers, 201 East Nash Street, Terrell, Texas. We have in the chambers tonight, District 2, Grady Simpson. District 3, Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem. District 4, Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem. And we have remote District 5, Tim Royce. So there is a quorum present, and the meeting has been called to order. Grady, would you lead us in invocation, please?
Yes, ma'am. Bow our heads, please. Father God, we come giving you much gratitude for preserving our lives and keeping us through all the adversities. We pray for those throughout the world, the Ukraine. We ask that you would guide and help them to be wise in the resources that they use. Keep them under your protection. We pray for America. We pray that you would guide this country in our time of adversity, and all the cities, help all the cities that have the mayors and leaders. Give us all wisdom, God, that we may see our way through the hard times into better times. And all in Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Our next item on the agenda is to hear mayor and council community recognition and events. Do we have any? No. Our next item on the agenda is to hear remarks from visitors. We have a citizen participation form filled out. I'd like to remind the participant that you got 3 minutes. Would you please come forward? It is Carlton Tidwell. Please state your name and your address.
Carlton Tidwell, I'm President and CEO of the Terrell Chamber of Commerce here in Terrell. Thank you, Mayor and Council, for allowing me 3 minutes. Yesterday, at the Terrell Chamber of Commerce luncheon, we recognized many businesses and volunteers. And even though her plaque has been given to her already, I just wanted to come today and publicly recognize Mary Gail Ramsey for 45 years of law practice in Terrell, and congratulate her on all the work that she's done, not only in Terrell, but for you as a council. And we appreciate all of her support at the Terrell Chamber of Commerce. So we just wanted to recognize Mary. I didn't know that you could take the bar exam while you were in grade school. You can, okay, your exam with that. But anyway, congratulations, Mary Gail, for 45 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlton.
Mayor, if I may, I'd like to add to what Carlton said, since I've been privileged to act as co-counsel with Mary Gail now for not quite that long, but a good long while. Let's just say over 25 years at least. And she has been an asset to this city in more ways than you can ever imagine, an asset to me and all of us. So congratulations to her.
Thank you. Is there any need for us to have Mary Gail further?
Mayor, I'm just going to say that it is evidence of what a good city attorney she is, that she's taking the fifth right now.
There you go. Thank you so much for your service to the city. Our next item on the agenda is adoption of the minutes. Discuss and consider minutes from the special city council meeting and workshop on May 2nd, 2022. The special city council meeting and workshop on May 10th of 2022. And the regular city council meeting on May 10th of 2022. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the minutes from the special city council meeting and workshop on May 2nd, 2022, special city council meeting and workshop on May 10th, 2022, and regular city council meeting on May 10, 2022, as presented.
We have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a second from Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem District 4. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Our next item on the agenda is 7.1, conduct a public hearing to receive comments regarding a request for specific use permit to allow the use of a truck repair shop on a property recently zoned as light industrial, LI. The property is 5.879 acres of land conveyed to Block 16, 17, 18, and part of 15, City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, also known as 500 East Grove Street, Terrell, Texas. Go ahead. Yes.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Before you, you do have a SUP request for a truck repair shop located off of Grove Street. This property is just north of the Rochester area where it's not built yet, but it's the Rochester extension on the other side of 34 and just north of the Lumberyard Company. The applicant would like to have a truck repair shop. And remember, this property is zone light industrial. And so what's happening here is, in the light industrial, you can have a truck repair shop through an SUP process. And then remember what the SUP process is. It's just that one specific use that can be attached to this property. Okay? So when we attach that SUP to the property, we also attach conditions with that. And in this case, we're gonna wanna attach quite a few conditions because the actual future zoning of this area is something new that we haven't seen. I mean, the future comp plan was the cottage industry that we created. If property were to be rezoned in this area, rezoned totally, we would want it to be rezoned to cottage industry, and we'll go through that in just a minute. However, right now, it's zone light industrial, and in order for them to do a truck repair shop, they have the right to come before you and ask you for an SUP. So just a few things with this. We have an ordinance in the packet. We wanted to concentrate heavily on the perimeter landscaping because that's even part of a transitional piece of what a cottage industry piece would be. So we'll have some building facade requirements, some screening requirements. We'll have an entrance, the sign will be a monument sign and so forth. I want to read a little bit. The future land, so I was talking about the cottage industry or industrial. It's defined as a transitional connection between the neighborhood areas and downtown. Okay, we're on the other side of some of these neighborhoods, but that was part of that area that we grayed out into the cottage industrial. Design encourages flexibility for new buildings with a focus on functional streetscape, long connector streets. So what we're really focusing on in this SUP, if the council so chooses to approve it, would be the screening, the site planning process, the landscaping, the pavement, just an upgrade to the property in whole. And so if you look over here on page 22 of your package, you'll see where the site is, just east of the 34 bridge crossing and just south of Grove Street. You look into our conditions. Some of the attachments in this packet will not meet the conditions of the SUP because that's what we recommended for the SUP because they don't. For instance, we won't allow EFS, stucco, or hardy plank less than 5 feet. You know, it has to be 5 feet above the ground. So that basically says you have to put brick or stone around the bottom. So if you look on page 30, these are the conditions of the approved site plan. Perimeter screening, not premier screening, but perimeter screening of the property in addition to the buffer. Any buffers we must have. It'll have to include a mixture of wrought iron fence with stone columns, cedar architectural metal. So the screening should also consist of solid landscaping, including planting the clusters and berms. and trees every 40 feet. Interior landscaping should consist of 15% property area. Each wall elevation should consist of 50% stone or brick, or 30% if 4 or more types of facade are used. And here's the comment I had out of our ordinance. The EFS, stucco, metal, hardy plank facade must be at least 60 inches above the ground unless contained within a closed porch area. Outdoor storage and parking must be on an improved surface. Signage and advertising is limited to 1 monument sign at the entrance of the site. The sign will contain landscaping. So there you have it. With the conditions of the SUP, again, it would allow for a truck repair shop. And at this point, we don't have a full design layout of the property of what he would do. He just, he's gonna go through that process, through the construction plat, process. And then, if this gets approved, and you'll see a construction plat on this later on in the agenda, because it has to come with it. But after the construction plat's approved, if this is approved, then those public improvements are built. And then there can be a final plat submitted for recordation. And once that's done, then we deal with the site plan of the layout of the property, which would have to meet all the conditions of the SUP if we approve it. So that's it. The P and Z did approve this. I understand there was a question about this being in a transitional area, but it's not designed as the downtown area. It is still light industrial, and the future land use does call for it if it is rezoned to be a cottage industrial space, which we have defined in the ordinance. So we had to wrap ourselves back up and say, look, this is a specific use on a specific piece of property. And that's all it can be used for at that time. Any questions for me?
This time, this is a public hearing, so we'll open it up to the public. Is there anyone to speak on this issue? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. We'll move on to item 7.2. Would you please read that into the?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we bring to you tonight ordinance number 2907, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, granting specific use permit number 22-01, SUP 22-01, under the provisions of Section 31B, Appendix 2, zoning ordinance of the City of Terrell to Angel S. Vasquez by allowing an exception to the provisions of Section 29, Appendix 2, zoning ordinance of the City of Terrell for certain property more particularly described as part of Block 15 and all of Blocks 16, 17, and 18, Terrell Original, City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, and also being known as 500 Grove Street, City of Terrell, Texas, as shown on the plat thereof attached hereto as Exhibit A, and made a part hereof for all purposes, said property currently being zoned as light industrial, LI, by permitting a truck repair shop to be located on said property, providing for the repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date, SUP 22-01.
Thank you, Council. Council, we reviewed this last week. Does anybody have any new questions for our Municipal Development Director, Charles Fenner? This was an 8-0 vote by our Planning and Zoning Commission to approve the specific use permit. Is there a motion on item 7.2?
Mayor, I just have a question for
Yes.
Benner. Benner, it sounds like that there's various steps that the applicant will have to complete prior to being able to open and utilize the location for as a vehicle repair shop.
Yes, ma'am. So this SUP is just the top overlay entitlement to allow that use. And then they have to do a construction plat, and that construction plat is what's gonna lay out the infrastructure, the access points and everything that they're doing with drainage. They have to cross, Steve Rogers' path there. And then we get that approved, which that's gonna be on the agenda this evening. And then from there, again, they'd have to go build any public improvements, fire lane, and the water and all that. And then they can submit a final plat, and that final plat then records it And then after that, they will submit a site plan to us for a building permit for the circulation, the landscaping, and all the conditions that are related to the SUP.
Do we recall how long this location has not been utilized for? How long it's been vacant?
It's been, as far as I know, it's been a long time because it's actually gonna be, it's actually similar to the lumberyard. When we took the lumberyard and platted that lumberyard and did a construction plat and an SUP for the lumberyard, it was, I think we took in 12 lots of the old Terrell edition, meaning there hadn't been a lot done on those lots in a long time. Now, since Mr. Rogers has been around here for 70 or 80 years, he may know a little bit more than I do, so.
Sure. And it sounds like if the applicant moves forward in a positive direction with all of the steps that we've put in place, that it would add, it would improve the appearance of the specific location.
I believe so, very much so.
And this is an applicant, certainly it's, this applicant is a District 3 applicant. He certainly has outgrown the location where he's currently at. I don't recall that there's, specific concerns as far as violation of this applicant. The last I heard was that he was working with the chamber and was working with the city to identify a location that met his needs and then also met the city's needs as far as right, what zoning area does it go into. He was looking a little further south, and that was not in line with the plans that we as the city have for that specific area he was looking to. So it looks like he's been certainly working with the chamber and the city to identify a location that would be good for both partners.
Yes, ma'am, we worked, I think we worked with him.
There may be another.
We have worked with him since last year because he's come in, but I don't know if he's talked to the chamber and for location stuff. We have a ton of people coming in. There is a muffler group.
The agenda.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so, what's before us is, the specific use permit and ordinance number 2907. Councilwoman, do you have any further questions on?
Oh, no, thank you.
Okay.
Mayor, I have one question for
Yes.
Mr. Finner. Just making sure the applicant is a good neighbor. Does the SUP address parking on the grass? It is a sizable lot, and just wanted to know if the SUP addresses parking on the grass.
Yes, sir. All storage will be screened and all parking will be on an improved surface. So if he doesn't use the whole property, he doesn't have to improve the surface in the back. If he is storing stuff in the back, which he doesn't intend to, the idea is to actually have bays that he has these trucks in and then park them out there. It will all be on an improved surface.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Is there a motion on item 7.2?
I move to approve ordinance number 2907 as presented.
We have a motion for Mayor Ronnie Velasquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3. Is there a second? Have a second, Grady Simpson, District 2. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Our next item on the agenda is 7.3. Conduct a public hearing to receive comments regarding a request for a specific use permit to allow the use of a garage as an accessory dwelling on a property recently zoned as single-family 16, SF16. The property is 0.37 acres of land conveyed to Terrell Revised Block 289E, Lot 3, City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, also known as 608 Griffith Avenue, Terrell, Texas, SUP 22-02. Mr. Finner.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you just said, 608 Griffith Avenue is a zone that allows for accessory dwellings to be built within on the property. It's at their SF6 zoning, 16 zoning, and it is allowed by an SUP. Mr. Oakley was replacing a garage, and he wanted to have a sitting area upstairs, and it really turns into an accessory dwelling at that point, and so we have to go through this process. It's real simple. The facade needs to match the house or exceed the exterior elements that it has there on the house. So it's a pretty simple request, and we do recommend approval. P&Z did recommend approval to 8-0.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fenner. This is a public hearing, so at this time, we will open the public hearing to hear comments related to 608 Griffith Avenue. Are there anyone to speak for or against? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing. Our next item on the agenda is 7.4.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we bring to you tonight ordinance number 2908, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, granting specific use permit number 22-02, SUP 22-02, under the provisions of Section 31B, Appendix 2, zoning ordinance of the City of Terrell to John Matthew Oakley, by allowing an exception to the provisions of Section 29, Appendix 2, zoning ordinance of the City of Terrell for certain property more particularly described as part of Terrell Revised Lot 3, Block 389E, City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, and also being known as 608 Griffith Avenue, City of Terrell, Texas, as shown on the plat thereof attached hereto as Exhibit A, and made a part hereof for all purposes. Said property currently being zoned as Single Family 16, SF 16, by permitting the construction of a garage as an accessory dwelling to be located on said property, providing for a repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing an effective date, SUP 22-02.
All right. Council, again, this was a 8-0 vote. Our Planning and Zoning Commission approved the SUP. Is there any further questions of Mr. Fenner?
Question for Mr. Fenner.
Yes.
The bottom of the building is intended to be a garage, and the additional living space would just be in a room above the garage?
Yes, sir.
Okay, no further questions.
Thank you. Anyone else? Hearing none, is there a motion on 7.4?
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve ordinance number 2908.
We have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a second from Mayrani Velazquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Our next item on the agenda is 7.5. Conduct a public hearing to receive comments regarding a zone change from agricultural AG to single-family S.5 or SF 7.5 on 13.057 acres, City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas. This property is currently located north of Interstate 20, west of FM 2578, and south of Windsor Avenue, also known as FM Road 2578, Terrell, Texas. Mr. Fenner.
Yes, Mayor, Council, this Rogelio Reyes has been before us before on several development agreements. He's done a small subdivision and then several infill lots. So we've been working with him through this past year. He wants to rezone the 13 acres just north of the interstate, just east of the Windsor Rockwall extension, property there at 2578, from ag to 7.5. The comp plan calls for new traditional neighborhood, which 7.5 falls within this. It's pretty simple to us to work with him. There's a couple things there. If you look on, just to let you see, if you can go to page, I don't know what page that is in here, but we have our page, can't read it. There's a site plan in there, location map. You can see that this property is just east of the Woodlands that's being built right now on the southern portion, and you can see that it's just south of the senior terraces, so Rockwall Avenue will be extended all the way down from Windsor, at that intersection down to Interstate 20 eventually. So through this process, this is just the entitlement, but through this process, we need to have Mr. Reyes work with the engineer from the Woodlands for the sewer issue, because we had to do that with the terraces too, to carry that sewer over through that phase. So, excuse me, we'll be working through that. We will also have to work through how we're going to extend Rockwall, because the intentions are to have Rockwall extended from Windsor about 1,130 feet south. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Fenner. This is a public hearing, so at this time, we'll open up the public hearing to receive comments, if any, on this piece of property, FM Road 2578. Anyone to speak for or against? Hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. This time, we'll move on to 7.6.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we bring to you tonight ordinance number 2909, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, amending Appendix 2, zoning ordinance of the City of Terrell by changing the zoning classification on certain real property more particularly described as 13.057 acres of land situated within the John C. Hale Survey, Abstract 202, City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, and located north of Interstate Highway 20, west of FM 2578, and south of Windsor Avenue from agricultural, AG, to single-family 7.5, SF 7.5, as shown on the plat attached here to as Exhibit A, and made a part hereof for all purposes, providing for severability and providing an effective date, ZC 22-03.
Again, council, this is a zoning change. It was passed unanimously and approval from our Planning and Zoning Commission by 8-0 vote. Is there any further discussion, questions for Mr. Fenner on this item? Hearing none, is there a
Mr.
motion?
Fenner?
Oh,
I'm sorry, Mayor.
you're good. Go ahead.
Mr. Fenner, you can tell me if I'm jumping processes here. I know this is step one, but is the applicant aware of the roadway easement that will probably be required?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You talking about the extension of Windsor? I mean,
I'm talking
Rockwall?
about the extension of Rockwall. And then, of course, I'm curious because the land is landlocked at the moment with no connecting road to any other thoroughfare. So,
Yes, sir.
but if that's later in the process, then okay.
We're working through that all right now.
Thank you, Councilman. Anyone else?
I'm curious also, will that be the only entrance from Rockwall? It won't be an entrance 20, will it? That'd take up a lot more.
They're gonna actually have two entrances off Rockwall. So we're gonna have them work. He has a conceptual plan out right now. It's just a little bit before the actual entitlement of the property. But we have told him that he needs two access points out on Windsor Road. So there's still planning pieces that need to happen here. Yes, ma'am.
Anyone else, council? All right, hearing none, is there a motion on 7.6?
Motion to approve ordinance number 2909 as presented.
We have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velazquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a second from Grady Simpson, District 2. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimous vote. Our next item on the agenda is 7.7. Oh, I'm sorry. 8.1, discuss resolution, this is discussion items. Am I done with all of the?
Yes,
Public hearings are done,
all
and
right,
there
right
are
on
discussion
it.
items.
All right, good. Discussion items. Item 8.1, discuss resolution number 2007, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Texas, approving the recommendation of the tax increment reinvestment zone number 1, authorizing approval of the tax increment reinvestment zone number 1, fiscal year 22 budget. This is Mr. Sims.
So, Mayor and Council, I'm going to bring you several items here in a row that are all about recommendations of the tax increment refinance zone. They've been meeting a couple of times to talk through some of these things. They didn't really adopt a very detailed budget for FY '22, just out of sort of financial caution in there, but they're ready to do so now and ready to spend some money. So if you flip over here, I'll say also that this comes to you on a unanimous recommendation of the tax increment refinance zone Board of Directors. Page 86 of your packet shows you their FY '22 TERS budget. The city TERS, we would anticipate 1.3 million in revenue. The county TERS portion, $376,000 in revenue. And then on the expenses, the first several of those are by contract. The Market Center, Buc-ee's, Crossroads, Cinecola, those are all the formulaic agreements that we have in place on reimbursing development costs. Then here's where it gets interesting. TERS budget, aiming for picking up some costs on some of our capital implementation. So you see the Library Community Center consultant. You see a downtown project office there, Town Square Master Plan, and downtown sidewalk grant, and then the debt/reserve of $344,000. So that rounds out their budget of 1.6, almost 1.7 million. So you see they leave themselves just a little tiny reserve there. But overall, they would like to move forward on this. I'll describe each of the other ideas in turn here because they're covered in the future resolutions. There's a little bit more information about the library, community center, the downtown project office, the Town Square Master Plan, and the downtown sidewalk grant. But we get to each of those in one of the future resolutions, so I'll go into more detail there.
Okay. Anybody have any questions on Resolution 2007, the tax increment reinvestment zone number 1? Any questions on it?
I don't have any questions regarding this item.
Okay.
However, I do have questions that will apply to these, what's listed in this item in the later
Okay.
items.
So as we get to those resolutions that involve the question, then we'll take it at that time. Does anybody have anything on 2007? All right, thank you, Mike. Our next item is 8.2, discuss resolution number 2006, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Texas, approving the recommendation of the tax increment reinvestment zone number 1, Board of Directors, authorizing funding for downtown project office. Mr. Sims.
So, Mayor and Council, I'm going to ask Dawn if she can get agenda item page 89 in front of us, because that's a big, beautiful map that Steve Rogers commissioned for us that gives you some context of the overall downtown area. So when you take a look at that map, what you're going to see is that they've laid in several projects that all work together. One of those projects is the Complete Streets project. That's fine. We'll give you a second. Another one is the Quiet Zone project. The South Alley project's actually shown on there as well. And then the Town Square project. So since all of these are all happening right in the same area, the idea is that we get a hawk of our own to overlook all of these and to make sure that we're implementing these in a good stepwise fashion, and we watch our nickels as we do each of these. As I mentioned to you in workshop format a couple of weeks ago, this was an idea that we really brought over from our experience doing the police building. That was a big, complicated project, and we had one of our engineering project managers kind of take the lead on that. This is even more complicated with many more moving parts, and we felt like it was appropriate to use our tax increment refinance zone funding for capital projects to help us implement this particular capital project. So we're going to get there in a second. Go up. almost there. There you go.
There you go.
All right. So I can see this is on the screen for the audience as well, and that's very helpful. So just one step at a time. The blue line, the north-south blue line on that map, that's Virginia. The line that is red and purple, that's US 80. Okay, so that's Moore Avenue. Then there's a little purple line on there. That's the South Alley. And you can see that's just south of the area that's labeled Core Zone. And then you can see that we've got some image there on each of the railroad crossings. So first off, I'll encourage you to spend some time zooming in on this on your own computer, because it is pretty fascinating to look at the details of this. And the reason I show it here, though, is that it's the need to coordinate all of these different things. As you know, we've got a town square that we're going to be implementing over a lengthy period of time. And within that is going to be, among other civic facilities, our new library. So within all of that area, you've got several blocks of green that are shown there. And that's generally the area between Francis and Adelaide, going all the way down to Newton. So if we're implementing new roads, new water, new sewer, new drainage, new sidewalks, city park, city civic facilities within that zone, how are those going to coordinate with the Complete Streets project on Virginia? How are those going to coordinate with parking lots we need to get built? How are those going to coordinate with the US 80 project? How is that going to coordinate with quiet zones? We've already looked at and we've discussed a little bit with you guys how the quiet zone projects and the railroad improvements might cause us to have to make South Alley a one-way street, right? And so that would be a major issue. And with some of the other traffic pattern changes here, we want to make sure we coordinate all of that. So the upshot of that is that as we briefed the Tax Increment Refinance Zone Board of Directors on this topic, we felt like the best thing to do would be to use some of their funds to get a project manager working in Mr. Fenner's office, which would be overlooking, coordinating all these downtown projects. And you've got a couple of people in the audience tonight, Nathan Ante and Ian Dowell, who are going to talk to you about the Complete Streets project part of it. And then you're going to see some effort under a couple of the other TERS project items to make some continued progress on the Senior Center, Community Center needs assessment, and the planning efforts associated with the town square. So all of that to say, let's have somebody here in the house overlooking this, so it's not just fully a consultant exercise. So you can stay there. But just for reference, we're going to look at Resolution 2006, and it's the one that says we're going to authorize the use of TERS funds to create, staff, and operate a downtown project office to assist with the delivery of capital projects supporting downtown revitalization. Agenda item page 91 shows you the details of that. So you've got a project manager, and we listed kind of the high end of our salary range there. We listed an admin assistant there. Lease and building operations is given a price tag, $36,000, supplies and materials, $35,000, and then we have some financial reporting elements that we want to talk about. We put that down for $18,000. So that's about a $300,000 annual expense. When we presented all of this to your TERS board, they voted unanimously to recommend this to you, and that's where we are right now. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about the downtown project office part of all of this.
Anybody have any questions of Mr. Sims?
So I'd like to get a little bit more clarity on the administrative assistant's duties. I'd love to be able to see a job posting for both of the positions. I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of the project manager's roles and responsibilities. I think the name is pretty descriptive of what their role is going to be, along with what the information you've provided, Mike. But I'm a little bit more curious as far as to what roles and responsibilities the administrative assistant will have.
Sure, I'd be happy to get you, and we might just email out separately the job descriptions for those positions. We're copying the engineering project manager job description over to Charles's area for this. So I'm sure we can get that out to you, at least as the engineering version of that description. It'll be a little different when it moves over to this slot. On the admin assistant side, as you would imagine, we have a standard issue job description for that. We can get that out to you as well. Just generally speaking, the admin assistant would be helping to make sure that the paperwork elements of this are all done. As you can kind of look and see before you, we're going to generate a lot of billing and a lot of invoices. We're going to make sure those are kept straight. Some of these can be reimbursed by the county bond program funds. Some of these will be eligible for federal reimbursements. So I would say the admin assistant is going to be a keep the paperwork straight kind of a person. And that's a very important element. And then the project manager's position is really going to be focused on keep the project on time and on budget, and make sure that each of the individual projects aren't just on time and on budget, but they're all actually coordinated with one another. So let's say Ian Dow here, who's going to be working on the public involvement associated with some of these projects, he might say, hey, I need to schedule a meeting and do this on this time. And then the project manager would have the job of saying, well, gosh, that looks like that might be a couple of weeks off because we need to make sure that we get this other project report filed in from somebody else working on another project, because the public will want to know what's going on with South Alley while we're presenting information to the public on complete streets on US 80. And that's just kind of an example of the project manager's got to be making sure all of these different projects are coordinated with one another. We've got a project right now that could use this kind of coordination because it involves, hey, we've got to not only do a little bit of demo work, we've got to then come back on top of that area and make sure that we can get a little bit of a parking area constructed and a mural constructed as well. Well, you know, that's a lot of different moving parts to get coordinated all at once. And that's the sort of thing this project manager needs to be front and center on.
And my concern when seeing both the project manager and the administrative assistant is, you know, are the roles and responsibilities of the admin assistant something that can be shared with another staff member at the city? You know, if it's going to be, for example, as you mentioned, paperwork and POs that need to get completed, can that be shared with another staff member? Do we need a full-time administrative assistant? Can we hold off until the new fiscal year to reassess once the project manager has been hired and you know, gets his or her foot in the door to see whether we need a half-time or a full-time position, or some of those opportunities for shared work are available. I certainly hear that you're saying that there's already a need for some assistance there, and I wonder if that is that something that we may see reduced over the following year, or maybe it'll increase? I'm just wondering if we're jumping the gun with the administrative assistant at this time.
Well, I guess I'd just say I'm mindful of all those concerns. I would say that if I look at my municipal development department operations right now, that's a department on full. I'd certainly like to be able to tell you that there's some staff people there who have enough free time to take on some of this stuff. And my inclination is, and I bet you won't have Charles Fenner come disagree with me on this, is that with all the other development pressure we are dealing with right now, that's a department that's fully loaded. In terms of, well, how quickly are we going to need that admin assistant in a full-time basis? I would tell you that if I look forward to how much work we're asking on the Kinley Horn side with quiet zones and with complete streets, on the Paddock side with mural projects and other smaller scale downtown improvements, with things that seem straightforward but really end up being rather difficult to track. And I'll use the Anderson Building incentive package for this. You know, it took us, what, Charles, maybe a year and a half to negotiate the Anderson Building, Griffith Building agreement. It's probably 30 pages long. and making sure that we do the reimbursements properly and in a timely manner out of that, that's no small task. And so I would just say I'm confident of the workload associated with these projects that we're putting in Charles's area. Charles, you want to add anything to that or mention anything there?
You know, as far as the admin position for this, both of these positions are out of the TIF. So they're not necessarily the general fund that we're paying for them. But we are investing into downtown with the TIF, and so having 7 or 8 consultants that we're needing to deal with and dealing with the infrastructure and just continuous development with people coming in. We probably have right now, about $8 million worth of new investment fixing to happen downtown. And so that's a good thing. And we're also needing to look for some grant monies for the revitalization of downtown. So I see that as a big deal. I also see the crossover because it is in the department that, yeah, we can, if they're twiddling their thumbs one day, we'll be having them do some code enforcement inspections. We're up to 72 or 82 inspections a day now. And it's only gonna get worse with downtown stuff. And so there's a lot to pull in. There's a lot of people asking. There's a lot of people trying to invest. We now have 3 partners downtown that have invested into the buildings, and they're making a lot of investment into it. So having all those consultants, scheduling those consultants and getting them in at the right time is a big deal. And so I could say that, yeah, being conservative and being very efficient and lean, we would be looking for a performance, project manager to come on. And then we could be looking for an admin assistant to come behind that. But
Our goal in these 2 positions is to streamline the operation, but also to keep from having costly mistakes in and around the downtown area. And that the project manager is to make sure that everybody's on schedule.
a great example, we have South Alley, where we hired the planner to do some stuff. We have the complete street piece. We have the utilities that need to be moved. We have British Flying School Museum that's needing to be built or turned into BFTS. So you have Steve Rogers working on utilities and trying to get permission from UPRR. You have me trying to buy property from UPRR. You have our architect that's going to be going out for bid, and then he's going to be taking on the bidding for the underground utilities. And so a lot of this stuff, some of these things have had to stop a little bit and slow down because the coordination efforts are great.
So,
Thank you for your feedback.
so these are all discussion items. When are we actually going to be voting on?
I would plan to bring these back to you next week to vote on.
Okay, so if we're going to be looking at them next Tuesday, I would ask for the council to make sure that you're comfortable with moving forward or not, depending on what you think, but feel comfortable with the numbers and what we're trying to get done, the reasons behind it, and reach out to Mike or Finner and resolve those issues before next Tuesday, right?
Do we have current staff, any current staff that's qualified to move in these positions? Or will it be something, especially with the project manager?
Gosh, Charles and I both want to answer this one. Go ahead, Charles. No,
I made it a big point that we wanted to look within my department and then around. So we're definitely going to be doing that.
my comment is really the same one. Best possible thing we can have is somebody get the opportunity to, compete for and win the project manager position that can basically get beginning a promotion out of the deal. So we'll make sure it's posted internally for some time and just give folks a chance to grow in the organization.
These job descriptions and qualifications are already written, so if I need to see that, I can go look at that within the next couple of days.
If I could be clear on those, I'm getting examples. We don't have any. We have some job descriptions from HR, but these need to be changed just like we've had to change a couple of our job descriptions to be efficient directly about the position. And so we won't be hiring an engineering project manager, we'll be hiring a downtown project manager. So yes, I'm working on, changing some of that up.
Yeah, I'd like to see, even if it's a skeleton, job description or whatever, I'd like to see that.
You got it?
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, next item on the agenda, am I at 8.3 or 8.4?
8.3.
This is such exciting stuff, you know, you lose yourself. Discuss resolution number 2011, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Texas, approving the recommendation of the tax increment refinance zone number 1. Board of Directors approving the professional agreement between the City of Terrell and KSA Engineering. This is Mr. Sims.
So, Mayor and Council, this is just the next step here. So, you guys know we did one step along the way of town square planning and got approval on that. That gave us the basic layout. There's another step involved here with making sure that we get the next round of planning for the town square done and we get some more public involvement available for it. And we make sure that as we build it, we're building something that makes sense from not just the general overall concept, but start getting some of those details correct. And so if you look in here, again, we had Mike Burns and Chris Basham, who you guys have seen quite a few times, come to our tax increment refinance zone, make a presentation to them, and that's what brought you the agreement that's basically starts on page 96 and goes from there. If you look through there, you'll be able to find the attachment A, which says next steps proposal. It talks about the purpose and goal, preparing development schematics of the Central Park alternative, some development standards, develop some of the initial program citing schematic design of the library, senior center, senior center, that's a mouthful, senior civic center, to help seed that and get that started. So you can see a lot of description about what each of those steps actually entail. You get some 3D modeling, and you get some recommendations made to us about landscape standards, what is it actually going to really look like out there, and lots of presentations about that. You can see way back on page 107, basically the overall project here. You're looking at somewhere between, they set it at 250 calendar days. I'm going to say, hey, this is kind of sort of the next 6 months to 12-month period of time with working forward on our town square project. So you can see the $240,000 budget there and giving opportunity for a charrette and what I think is very necessary, which is really getting some visuals out there so people can see what will this really look like as it gets developed. So right after that, in the package, you can see the unanimous recommendation of your TERS board to move forward on this item. And basically the idea in the resolution is saying, yes, this is a good expenditure for the tax income refinance zone, and then authorizing us to move forward with this particular contract. So happy to answer any questions about that. And just out of scheduling, Mike Burns and Chris Basham, or some combination of Mike Burns and Chris Basham, will be here next week, but I'll be happy to give a shot to answer any questions about it.
Does anybody have any questions on resolution 2011? Again, reach out to staff if you have any questions between now and next Tuesday. Next item on the agenda is 8.4, discuss professional services agreement, downtown complete streets and quiet zones. This is our city engineer, Steve Rogers.
So as Steve's coming up, I'll kind of explain that some of the ones you're seeing tonight are backed up by a tax increment refinance zone resolution because it's the TERS board paying for them. In this particular case, the funding source is the county bond program. And so we're bringing that one directly forward to you because the TERS is not providing the funding for it. We did vet this agreement through the Park and Downtown Improvement Corporation. Nathan and Ian were able to be with them and give a presentation to them because not on this particular part of the funding, because because this is county bond program funds, but the local match on complete streets, when we actually get to constructing complete streets, the local match for the capital project of complete streets, quiet zones, would be coming from paddock funds. That's the ultimate financial plan there. So, Steve, take it away.
Mike said everything I was gonna
Oh,
say.
no.
I'm gonna make this simple here. This is a big, complicated project. It's one of the biggest that I've ever brought before council. And it's an awesome project. And so, we're gonna get into that and look at this, proposal and what all it entails. And I'm gonna invite Nathan Ante to come on up here. Y'all have seen Nathan before. I'm gonna let him explain to you what he's got in this agreement. He knows it better than anybody else. He can describe the major tasks and go over whatever he wants to. And then Mike and I'll help fill in any blanks that we have. We'll certainly answer any questions that we have. Nathan, go ahead.
Great, thank you, Steve, and thank you, Mayor and Council and Mr. Sims. What you've got in front of you is, starting on page 10, that's our standard professional services agreement. And there's a fee summary on page 113, and we've set this up with 11 major tasks, and all of them are set up as hourly, not to exceed. And the scope itself starts on page 119, and it's 9 or so pages, and it describes what's included in each of those major tasks. And then on page 128 is a one-page approach and timeline that aligns with those tasks. And it's generally a 12-month project. And this is a one-page timeline that we plan to bring to y'all pretty regularly and to the paddock board and the community to show the progress on where we're at. So be happy to answer any questions. We're really excited to get started. We actually did get started on some of the traffic counts last month. We wanted to get those done and underway while school was in session so we could hit the ground running on the traffic side, so we didn't have to wait till fall to get that done. We've also got Ian. Ian is part of the JBJ team, and he'll be leading a lot of the community engagement efforts throughout. So happy to answer any questions that y'all have.
So, I'm looking at the approach and timeline, proposed timeline. If it is, I'm looking at a red base or marker. Let's take the first one, the data collection. You're gonna do that for 2 months, right?
That is right.
I
Yep.
just wanna make sure that I'm reading this correctly. Then, what are the stars?
The stars are really some major milestones. Month one, the notice to proceed. And then in that, underneath task one, that shows some regular progress meetings or calls with staff that are intended to be monthly, so we can report on the progress. And then that would also be followed by paddock board meetings, updating them pretty regularly, as often as we need to. And also city council updates. We've got a lot of different stars for that to come back to y'all as often as y'all would like.
Right. Nathan, maybe fill council in a little bit on task 2 with that project review committee. Tell them what that's about and what those stars mean for that.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. The Project Review Committee is what we'd like to do is establish a technical advisory committee that includes city staff, a paddock board member, UPRR, the railroad, TxDOT, the county, and COG, really a lot of the funding partners, so that we can help build consensus along the way, with the end goal being that memorandum of understanding, an MOU between COG, the county, TxDOT, and all the funding partners, that what we have proposed and what we have the community support on for what we're gonna do with the roadways is feasible from all of these other parties. So the various stars we'd like to get that established pretty quickly in that month 1 and 2 timeframe. We kick off the project with them. Midway through, we'll say month 5 is when we present some of the technical information, the traffic data, and then we funnel this down to a viable option that all parties, including TxDOT, agree to by the end of the process.
On task 3, the community engagement, of all of these different tasks. The community engagement is so important because if we don't have community buy-in, then we're spinning our wheels from the mayor's seat and each one of the council. That task, I think we need to be involved in, but also kept up to date as to how that's moving along for you. You know, the others, I think we can follow along okay, and we'll be all right, but if we don't have the community engagement, support, that means we need to get involved and make sure that our community knows what's happening, right? So that would be my comment for you. Does anybody have any other comments?
Yes, Mayor.
Yes.
Will you be recommending areas that you're going to suggest that there should be quiet zones versus ones that shouldn't be quiet zones?
Yeah, so task 8 here, we did initiate a lot of the quiet zone work up front under separate agreements. There is some quiet zone work that we will continue as part of this agreement, and a big part of that is engaging the railroad and also getting your all support and consensus on which ones could be closed, which ones we consider to be closed, and which ones we would not. So,
I know in my district, there is a HBCU called Southwestern Christian College.
yes.
And they, I get a lot of complaints from the staff and the students. So, be interested to see how you guys.
Yeah. And that's actually a task that we worked on with Mike early on, the boundaries of the downtown limits and focusing on quiet zones from the college, at least to the hospital day one. And then part of what we're also doing is some schematic of Bowser Circle and also of Birch to improve those entrances to that college so that they can remain open but also be quiet.
I'm going to take a minute to ask Ian to come up, if you don't mind. Y'all have seen Ian a variety of times. And I'll make this point, Ian, and then I'll let you kind of just discuss a little bit about some of y'all's general strategies for good public involvement. One of my aims for public involvement goes like this. It undercuts the entire credibility of the project, and it basically eliminates you from federal funding opportunities if you don't have a great, broad support in your city for the improvement, right? So myself and Nathan and a couple other folks, we did a conference call here recently with Federal Railroad Administration. And the goal of that, I guess, Zoom call with Federal Railroad Administration was to talk about funding availability and what sort of grants might be out there for some of this. And the project that the one example I showed them was Bowser. And because I think that the Bowser Street improvement is so incredibly key to making sure that we're really doing the right thing, right? Because if we're doing the right thing at the HBCU, if we're making Bowser work correctly, it's one of the least safe crossings we have now because of the poor visibility. You got a strange collection of how intersections come in at Bowser, driveways and all that sort of thing. So getting that right, we kind of were pitching it to FRA, saying how important we felt like it was to do more than the minimum standards. And Nathan, I thought this was fascinating. The reaction from FRA was, we're so glad because we hate it when people come forward and only want to do the minimum standards in a sensitive environment like that. And I said, okay, great. It's good to hear that we're thinking the same thing. So we would never want to go forward with FRA unless we could have a letter from Southwestern Christian College that says, yes, we like that version of Bowser, right? So part of Ian's job here is doing the one-on-one individual discussion with important stakeholders to make sure that they can look at that and say, yeah, I agree with that. I like that. That was the right thing for me and my community. Anyway, go ahead.
So thank you, Mayor, City Council, Mr. Sims, for having me. I was about to shout amen when you said this cannot happen without City Council's input. I would just like to say this is not going to happen without you guys. I'm going to need you guys to tell me who are the stakeholders that I need to talk to, who are the people who are going to make a difference in Terrell to come and speak. That's why we have this extensive community engagement project. You would see a lot of our community engagement is going out and canvassing the neighborhoods who are going to be affected by this Complete Streets project. Also talking to the stakeholders, which I will need your help on. We're also going to have multiple meetings with government officials. When we first came to you and gave you this project, I made it a point to come and give you my card with my cell phone number on it because I need you guys to be involved on this. We're also planning to do a website. We are planning to use the City of Terrell website and have a tab that says Complete Streets that is keeping if the community wants to know what's going on with the Complete Streets project, we're gonna make it as easy as possible for them. Go to the City of Terrell website, click the Complete Streets tab. We'll have every update, every community meeting. We're actually partnering with a company called Zen City that will allow live comments from each of any resident who would like to give feedback. And so not just at the town halls and not just at the community meetings are people are going to be able to give feedback. They'll be able to give feedback any day, any hour, any minute that they want to, because we understand maybe everybody can't make the community meeting, but everybody might have input. And so we are giving the residents, we're giving the stakeholders, we're giving everybody as many opportunities as they can to give their input into this, because we understand this project is affecting the city in a major way, and we do not want to upset the residents. We want to make sure that they are still in a city that they are proud of and that they want to live in for the ongoing future. And so I'd be happy to answer any questions. And if you don't have my card or my cell phone number, I will give it to you right now. I'm as the community engagement manager of this project, I want to be as open and available to you. Call me anytime, night or day. I want to give those updates and make sure this project is successful.
I'm pleased to hear that we got one with some enthusiasm in charge of this project, because it's going to take a lot of effort on your part, right?
Yes, sir.
And we want to be supportive of what's going on, right, and helping you along the process. But I'm glad to hear that we've got somebody that cares about what we're trying to get done. This is a huge, huge project.
Yes, sir.
And it's going to be a challenge, but it's not something that we can't overcome, and we're laying the groundwork for the future. So I want to thank my council members for doing so. Anybody have any questions of Ian?
Yes, Mayor. How you doing, Mr. Innes?
How you doing?
Good to see you again.
Good to see you as well, sir.
All right. Yes, one of my concerns is when you talk about community support. I remember when we did the long-term comprehensive plan back in 2017, 2018, and we got some community. We had a community support type of system set up, but to me, it wasn't enough community involvement. You know, you had a few, and I just really like to see this time moving forward a way to access the community much better and get everybody more involved. I know we had something a few months ago, the mayor and I and the council, we just kind of hit each district, and we had somebody to come in, they talked to the mayor, they talked to the people that were there, they talked to me. So I would really like to see a more aggressive approach in really getting our community involved and aware of what's going on. That's a big deal with me. I'm pretty sure as well as with the council.
So that's why I really like the diversity of our community engagement plan, because we're doing a canvassing effort where we're going up in that T of the Complete Streets and going to every business owner and everybody who's on that and saying, here's when the town hall meetings are here, here's the website. If you have any questions, I'm gonna give them my cell phone number just like I did you all. If those people aren't on that T, great, we have a canvassing effort where we'll be going around canvassing those neighborhoods around the T and making sure that they know this is happening. Here are the town hall meetings where you can give your input. If you can't make those town hall meetings, another great tool we have, we're gonna be on the City of Terrell website. Just click that Complete Streets tab. If you don't like one of the updates that are going on, go and leave a comment on it. And then we'll get that feedback to you all. And so my plan is, if you may not like some of the things about the Complete Streets project, you might not, but you'll know what's going on. You'll know exactly what's going on. We're gonna hear your feedback. We're gonna address your feedback in the correct manner. But I will say with confidence, with your guys' help, there will not be anybody who doesn't know what's going on with this project on every single day. They will know as much information as I know. And so I agree with you. Without a strong canvassing effort, this project is not going to go well. Or without a great community engagement effort, this project is not going to go well. And so I made a point to make sure that I'm using as many tools as I can use to make sure that everybody possible is reached and informed.
So one of the things that we have done in the past, and I think we're gonna kick it off again, hopefully in the fall when it cools off, is meetings with our council members in their districts. And it would be important for you to be there, y'all be there at those meetings as well, not only to meet us as a council, but to hear input from you guys and where we are in the project.
I would love that.
Okay? Let's
Mayor,
do that.
that's exactly what I was adding to my to-do list to make sure that we worked with Allison and JPJ Management to have some of that information at our Meet the City events. Community members, got a taste of that before COVID, so they'll be familiar with what to expect, and hopefully more willing to come to that. I appreciate in the contract having listing that meetings will be available both in English and Spanish. Sounds like the materials will be as well. I have, some, recently I was out of town, and this is for both, and some of the interesting things that I saw away from here regarding complete streets and or like a town square slash, a downtown square type, that I was glad to see in our plan is the closing of a street. Actually, I think ours that calls for, sorry, I gotta correct myself. I think ours calls for a one-way street, where I was in a community where they had 2 streets blocked off, and it allowed for, it was really put more so for pedestrians, and there were businesses along those routes as well, but wide enough to allow trucks to come in and drop off items. And it was just really neat to see the amount of individuals that enjoyed that pedestrian area and were able to walk. And then you also had, of course, the city, I feel like, did a pretty good job of still circulating traffic around the city square, to where you felt like you could get around it, but then easily could access the location. So it did feel like you were almost in your own space, without having too much concern of the vehicular traffic coming towards you. So I found that was interesting. They had some unique ways of how they dealt with the drainage that we'll be looking at as well. So I'd be happy to share some photos of that with the city and our partners.
Always happy to get that kind of input. I've got a Paddock board member who loves to travel and send me photographs, and I'm sure that's going to become part of Ian's log, and whoever else wants to participate in that is great. I think a lot of people here are hitting the nail on the head, because a lot of this is all about what is the right balance with the sidewalk, but still ability to pass a bunch of 18-wheelers through downtown. Making a quiet zone, but not hiding the train, because I got to have the train be something that's easy to see so you don't get hit by it, So there's a lot of balance to doing all these. If I want somebody to walk out of the British Museum, walk down the street and buy a snow cone or eat dinner at a nice restaurant, how do I do that in a way where the existing business owners say, great, I'm welcoming that, as opposed to having a rebellion of existing business owners that say, man, you really screwed that up because now it's not good for me and I'm the one who's been here longer. So I think there's all sorts of issues to be balanced there, and community input is the way you figure out a lot of these balance questions.
Anyone else? Royce, I see you going back and forth on something over there. You got any questions?
I'm just listening and reviewing the paperwork.
All right, cool. All right, thank you, Ian.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, gentlemen. Next item on the agenda, discuss Resolution 2008, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Texas, approving the recommendation of the tax increment refinance zone number 1 Board of Directors. That's the one we just did, approving the professional agreement with 720 Design.
So, Mayor and Council, this is the item specific to the question about, okay, when we start building civic buildings in the town square, library, senior center, community center, what's on the inside of the buildings, right? You guys have met Maureen Arndt a couple of times, so this is Maureen Arndt's slice of the pie. She came to our tax increment refinance zone meeting. We're trying to get her here for next week. And basically the idea with this one is to say, okay, while Nathan and Ian are working on complete streets, while Chris Basham and Mike Burns are working on Town Square, while Charles Fenner has a project manager overseeing all of this to make sure it's coordinated well, are we really taking care of, well, wait a minute here, what goes inside of these civic buildings, and are the inside of the civic buildings meeting the needs of our residents? That's what marine arts specialty is, and that's what you're going to see in this particular bite at the apple. So I won't read it to you or anything, but the idea is that if you take a look, you got a resolution 2008, and that one commits funding in both FY22 and FY23 to the effort. It gives me authorization to sign the agreement with Marine Art, that's 720 Design. And then you go, okay, great, how much time are we spending on this? Exactly what it is. You see some tours, some visioning, leadership interviews, program development, a lot of work to make sure that your concepts are meeting muster. How big does this facility need to be, and what service area population are we aiming for? Back on page 134, you can see some of those dollar amounts there. So you can see the total project cost right now is estimated. You got to kind of add up that 148 plus the 2-3,000s plus the 10,000. So that's why we got a cap of 180 in the resolution, because there are some hourly expenses that we're allowing to be added to this as we need them, as we might have a need for those. The next page in the packet is just a copy of the TERS resolution. We gave you that signed TERS resolution for all of those. So again, they've seen the presentation and they've said, yes, we approve moving forward on this project, and we recommend council approve it as well. So that's a quick overview of Resolution 2008. It's the inside of the building step of this process.
Does anybody have any questions of Resolution 2008?
It looks like, to clarify, because I'm looking at the resolution, and then I was trying to flip back and forth through I believe it's Exhibit A. I just want to make sure that we're not being vague on Section 2 of the resolution of authorizing the $90 million for next step for the library. But I do believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that then it directs us to Exhibit A, which is the actual proposal.
Yes.
That gives us a lot more detailed information on what.
Absolutely, right, yeah. We're tied to the actual proposal as provided in the packet, yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, next item on the agenda is discuss resolution number 2009, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Texas, approving the recommendation of the tax increment refinance zone number 1 Board of Directors, authorizing planning and engineering for downtown sidewalk projects. Mr. Sims.
So, Mayor and Council, this is just another step along the same idea. Again, approved by the Tax Increment Refinance Zone Board, and it's this time related to planning and engineering of downtown sidewalk projects. Due to the fine efforts of staff and our efforts to be eligible under that RTC policy programs. You may hear me talk about this from time to time. I'll say, hey, we need to pass a resolution to be in line with policies of the Regional Transportation Council. Well, as you guys have been doing that, you've earned $1.4 million for the city that is available to us with no local match. So that's great news. We like that. But we still have to pay for the engineering associated with these projects. I'm not going to try to read you the description because it's very convoluted on page 141. But basically, the idea is for a section of Spur 226, we get to do some sidewalk and landscaping projects, and for a section of US 80, we get to do some sidewalk and landscape projects. So we haven't exactly picked out what those can be because we're arm wrestling with the Regional Transportation Council about where to engineer those and where to spend that money. But it is $1.4 million combined between the two projects. In order to hone in on exactly what we're going to build, I really need to hire an engineering firm to do that work. And this resolution allows us to use the TERS board for not only this engineering of this project, but allows us to also go chase additional grants in our downtown area for additional sidewalks in our downtown area. So that's a quick overview of this one. And again, just the engineering funds necessary to get a 100% construction grant from the Regional Transportation Council.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mike.
Mike, where's the proximity of Birch Street? I'm not sure where that is. I reckon-
Birch Street is, imagine going one block past Dallas. So keep going east, and there's a little road that sticks out there called Birch, and it's basically a block past Dallas, further east than Dallas, yeah. Yeah.
Anyone else? Next item on the agenda, discuss resolution 2010, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Texas, approving the recommendation of the tax increment refinancing, reinvestment zone, number 1, and Power Center Board of Directors approving the professional services agreement between the City of Terrell and P3 Works LLC. Mr. Sims.
So if you're thinking, gosh, could we please have the TERS board stop being so busy? This is your last TERS board resolution, okay? This is the simple one, which is, can they spend $18,000 to have a firm that specializes in the auditing and reporting of tax increment refinance zones, actually get engaged and help us do the financial review and the audit of TERS number 1. I'll say that if you've been with us for any time, you know that it's often rather difficult for our audit firm, Patella Brown and Hill, to dig into something as detailed and complicated as our tax increment refinance zone. And this specialty service will really help us on just keeping our numbers straight over in the TERS zone. P3 Works does exclusively this kind of work. So they manage financial issues for public improvement districts, tax increment refinance zones throughout the state of Texas. They do a great job at it, and we're really happy to be making this relationship.
Great. Yeah, you have to have a firm that understands all of the financing associated with it. Any questions? Next item, discuss resolution number 2005, a resolution of the City of Terrell, Texas, authorizing the city manager to enter into agreements with artists to expand the existing historic mural collection in the City of Terrell and declaring an effective date. Mr. Sims.
So, Mayor and Council, I may be asking Allison Walker for a little help here. She presented this to the Park and Downtown Improvement Corporation. I'm going to give the presentation in summary and let Allison correct me as need be. It does come to you on a unanimous recommendation of the Park and Downtown Improvement Corporation. Basically, the idea is that we want to do murals that we're sort of nicknaming the Sesquicentennial Mural Project. They wanted to set aside $250,000 of their paddock board budget to do so. That obviously counts as downtown improvements. We've got a series of these that we want to do. I'll highlight just a couple of them, and then there's some others in the presentation. You know, for quite some time, we've been working on an African-American themed mural that would be on the side of Houston Smith's building. We're getting closer and closer to being able to do that. We have an agreement from Cedric Huckabee, who's a really amazing artist who teaches at UT Arlington. He's trained at Yale. You go take a look at his website, Cedric Huckabee, and you will see some amazing artwork. He's agreed to do that mural for us. He's already started interviewing Fred Gray, who's a former chairman of the board of Southwestern Christian College and played a really instrumental role serving as the attorney both on the Tuskegee class action lawsuit, and he was also the attorney for Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King Jr. in the Montgomery bus boycott. So that's a real legend who's got a Terrell connection, and we're going to celebrate some other African-American history as part of that as well. So that's one. Another one is the founding of Terrell, which came from a land transaction. So there's a small mural idea associated with celebrating that land transaction. And then there's some other murals that I would say branch off from history and start just sort of getting into the fun side and the exciting and what can I Instagram photograph myself with. And then also a big theme of the Park and Downtown Improvement Corporation was, do we have murals right now today that have had too much sunlight and they're starting to fade and maybe they don't look their best anymore? And there's also some money for reclamation of those and for a certain kind of covering you can paint on those that is basically a clear coat that preserves the paint in a much better fashion than has been done in the past. So a lot there, but it is authorization from the Paddock Board or request from the Paddock Board to start moving forward one at a time on these different mural projects. Allison, did I miss anything there, or did we do okay? All right, thank you.
Any questions? Next item on the agenda is discuss agreement for planning services for business plan, minimum standards, and rules and regulations at Terrell Municipal Airport. City Engineer Steve Rogers.
Sorry, Mayor, I had to pay my debt there to Dawn. We made a bet earlier and she won. I gave her my $1. We bet earlier and she won the bet. So I believe in paying up my what I owe. We have in your packet, there's a lot of information on this item. And so I need to go over some of it. But first, there's a PowerPoint presentation that starts on page 163 of your agenda. Yeah, you gonna pull that up, Dawn? Thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna introduce Nathan Paulsgrove. Nathan's with Garver. We've selected him to be our consultant on this. And I'll let Nathan go through this PowerPoint presentation all by himself, and then I'll help him out when he gets done there. So go ahead, Nathan.
Steve.
Thanks, Steve. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today. Like Steve said, my name is Nathan Paulsgrove. I'm an aviation planning leader with Garver, and I will be the project manager for the 4 airport planning projects that I'll be speaking with you about today. So the 4 projects that are proposed for the airport this year are the 4 that you see on the screen, and I'll go through each of them briefly. The first is what's known as an airport master plan. Essentially what that is it's an infrastructure development plan for the airport. What we do as part of that is we look 20 years ahead and we say, how does the infrastructure at the airport, the runways, the taxiways, roadways, hangars, et cetera, how does that all need to change? How does that need to evolve over the next 20 years? The second project is an airport business plan. What's unique about an airport business plan is that it focuses on how do we really drive growth at the airport? How do we attract more aircraft? How do we attract larger aircraft? How do we attract additional tenants to the airport to help the airport grow and thrive and improve economic development in the area? The next 2 are kind of smaller projects, but they're very important. The first is a height hazard zoning ordinance. So airports, as you would expect, having planes coming in and out, have airspace that surrounds them that needs to be protected. So you don't have someone develop something, a tower in a particular place that maybe inhibits your ability to be able to use the airport. And so we'll be developing a new height hazard zoning ordinance for the airport. The bottom one that you see there is actually 2 projects kind of commingled together. The first one is minimum standards. So minimum standards are actually, it's a document that's recommended by the FAA that airports develop, and it sets basically a kind of a baseline of minimum requirements for businesses operating at the airport. What it does is it ensures a sufficient level of service to tenants and users at the airport for those businesses, but then it also establishes a level playing field for people who want to come and establish businesses. And then the final one is airport rules and regulations. Those basically cover kind of general rules of conduct, safety, and security for anybody operating at the airport. It's not clicking. Okay. So why are these projects needed? I'll start with the airport master plan. It was last updated in 2005. Typically, these plans are updated every 10 years or so, really to just account for changes in aviation technology, different uses of aviation, et cetera. The business plan, again, as I mentioned before, is really focused on how do we grow the airport, and so that's why that one's needed. The height hazard zoning ordinance was last updated in 1989. And there's been a number of changes related to airspace in that time that need to be taken into account and will be taken into account with the new ordinance. And then the same thing with minimum standards and rules and regulations, last updated in 1995. And there's a number of industry changes that have occurred, policy changes on the FAA side that need to be taken into account. Okay, so probably one of the big questions you all may be asking is, we understand what these 4 projects are, but why do they need to be done together? Really, through these 4 projects and doing them collaboratively, you really touch every aspect of how an airport operates, from operational policies, infrastructure, to marketing, finance, et cetera. So you really take a comprehensive look, a comprehensive approach, as you see there on the slide, to really establishing the future of the airport. And what that gives you at the end of the day is it really gives you a strategic vision. It gives you an opportunity for a strategic and comprehensive vision for how you drive the airport forward. And then you can surround that, that vision with plans for marketing, plans for operations, plans for infrastructure, et cetera. Next slide. So here's the proposed cost sharing for the project. So a portion of this, particularly the master plan and the height hazard zoning ordinance, are being funded through a grant with TxDOT Aviation. So as you can see there, there's essentially a 90-10 split on that. And you'll note down there at the bottom of the slide that $30,000 that's shown as city funds as part of that was actually part of a resolution 1050 that was passed in June 2021. The airport business plan and minimum standards, because of some funding constraints with TxDOT Aviation's bandwidth, really to be able to fund additional work, are being done outside of that agreement, outside of that original work that with the master plan and height hazard zoning ordinance that's covered in the first project there, the first block that you see at the top. So that's the conclusion of my presentation. I'm available for any questions. So Steve, was there anything you wanted to say?
Jump in here a minute. So thank you, Nathan. So what Nathan just went over is the important part of this. We have 2 different projects, one grant project that's funded through TxDOT Aviation. And if you look in your packet, if we can, if they go to their agenda packet now, please. On page 169 is resolution 1050. So if you got your packet now, you can pull it up. You see resolution 1050, which I believe all of you were here in June of 2021, including Ms. Thomas, and y'all approved this agreement with TxDOT to spend up to $30,000. So we'll be taking 10% of that number that Nathan had on that slide of $294,000. And that'll be our obligation to that. And a business plan and the minimum standards and rules and regs will be funded 100% by the city. The agreement that you have in here in your packet is what that is. One more thing I'd be remiss in going ahead and paying attention to. The master plan is something we've done before, and that's just kind of boilerplate stuff. The business plan is something unique for Terrell. We've never done that. And so I want to make sure I recognize our airport board chairman who's with us tonight, the unemployed Bill Hutmaker. You can ask him about that. But Bill, come up a minute, please, if you don't mind. We went to the airport board last Wednesday and talked to them about this. And this page on 170 is a detailed breakdown of what the business plan is. When I handed this to Bill, he had a pretty good comment that I thought was really good. He thinks exactly what the airport needs and what they're looking for. So Bill, let me give you a minute, please.
Mayor and council, thank you for letting me talk. The good news is you have an active airport board that has a real passion for the airport. For some people in the city, they may not be such good news, but we are excited about doing a business plan. For those of you that have been in business, before you do something, you plan. And it's something we feel is very important for the airport because we feel the airport can be an important part of the city's growth, and it should be a part of that growth. So putting this together with the master plan, to us, makes a lot of sense, and it will really help the airport grow to what it needs to be. What does it need to be? That's what this plan does. It takes a look at our strengths, weaknesses. It takes a look at the market out there. We can look at what McKinney's doing and growing. We can take a look at where the gaps are. And so I was just coming for the board to give you our support for this.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So with that, you have the agreement in here behind that. Again, as Nathan said earlier, it's $110,000, a little more than that. And that's what will be coming to you next week, asking for approval on. The other approval for the other project has already been approved last summer by you guys, so we'll be able to put all these together in one comprehensive project going forward, and that'll help Nathan and everybody else do this one time and do it right. So this process will take about, how long? We'll see what he says. I know how long it ought to take.
The actual bulk of the labor takes about 12 months from beginning to end. However, there's usually a number of months afterwards, many times 5 to 6 months for regulatory approvals, specifically with the master plan and the airport layout plan.
So this plan will take about 12 months to do most of the heavy lifting and to come back with some real solid information.
Yeah, council, I think we have a obligation to citizens to utilize the airport that's available to us. There's not many communities who have access to an airport, and as the county continues to grow and as we continue to grow, it's going to be an asset moving forward. Only if we do what Steve's recommending now and do our due diligence and upgrade everything. And Chairman Hutmacher as well, thank you so much for your work, and I think this is something that we should support and move forward. You might have any comments or questions?
Nathan, I am very interested in the economic development part of what can come out of from all the plans, specifically the business plan.
Sure.
Are there some common themes that you've seen throughout the United States or the Texas area? And my mind goes towards the growth in North Texas and in Texas overall, and then the high demand for products as well.
Sure, no, absolutely. There's a number of things that you can tie aviation demand to. There's certainly kind of the logistics aspect of it, where it's supporting the movement of goods or passengers. But something that we've seen specifically from a business aspect at airports that's really been growing in recent years is avionics. And that tends to be a real point of interest in impacting avionics business. And what they do is, as you would expect, there's a lot of instrumentation in the cockpit of an aircraft, and the FAA, as part of their next-gen air traffic control system, is requiring a lot of updates to that. And so there's this strong demand within the industry, and will be for many years, to have the staff and equipment to be able to upgrade those in aircraft to make them compliant with some of the new standards that are required. So I think that is one that I would say, when you mentioned a theme, that we're kind of seeing across the industry is a high demand for avionics shops at airports.
Well, thank you for indulging me in that question.
Sure, absolutely.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'd be remiss not to thank Nathan. He's worked for us on a couple of projects where we were vetting some economic development prospects for the airport. Did an absolutely great job asking the right questions, helping us to ask the right questions. I typically only get to see him over Zoom calls. So I'm really thankful that he's here face to face with us.
How long
And
you thought?
yeah, absolutely, and more beautiful too.
Oh, I appreciate
and
that.
anyhow, really sincerely, thank you very much. You've already contributed a lot through your expertise, so I appreciate that very much.
Thank you very much.
I have one more comment.
ma'am.
It goes back to economic development and always looking for opportunities and partnerships with our school district and growing the pipeline.
Yeah, absolutely. STEM collaborations between airports and local school systems is definitely something that can drive a lot of interest in aviation. We've seen it even be a catalyst for starting flight schools at airports, which can, again, generate a lot of activity and interest in aviation in the area. So, no, that's a wonderful point.
Thank you for that, Nathan.
I can say just a quick word, that's not a legal matter, but I learned how to fly on that airfield back in the
Did ya?
60s. And was a member of the airport board too, sir, if you believe it or not. But that airport is the best situated place I've ever seen. It sits right astride 80 and 20. It is the first airport to the east outside the terminal control area where you don't have to have a radio and a transponder and all that sort of thing. I think it's put in a tremendous position for growth. I think you're going to see a lot of the airports, like one that comes to my mind, Addison, that probably the real estate is going to be too valuable to be an airport much longer. And those planes have got to go somewhere. It'd be nice if they came out here.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you all.
All right. Our next item on the agenda is business items. The first one, 9.1, discuss and consider Tyler Technologies contract. Is Becca on Zoom or she out?
It'll be John.
Ms. Anderson is not able to be here. She
Okay.
is down, I believe, in College Station, going to be at a broadband conference tomorrow.
Okay, gotcha.
So I'm John Cross. Nice to see you guys again. Thank you for having me, Mayor and Council, and Mr. Sims. So I just wanted to give you a quick update on the digital front door project. Since the last time we talked, there's really just been a couple of major steps that have been completed. One of which is we have concluded the negotiations, I think in our favor, and we have also completed the contract. So the contract that you have in your packet today is the final version of the contract. There are no material changes from the last version that you saw, but this is the final version. So just real quick, we'll jump through these slides. These we've gone over a number of times. Next one. So there's no real material difference here. This is just a breakdown of the numbers. Next slide. What we are ultimately come out to be with the software and services from Tyler, with the hardware that we're going to need to purchase for the police department's portion of this, and the city labor and the contingency that we have built in, we're looking at a total of $2.8 million, roughly, over 5 years. And that includes both the one-time cost of $1.8 million and the $99,000 of ongoing expense. So those are the regular yearly maintenance fees and software fees and whatnot. And so that is ultimately what we are looking at to do this project. It'll get our footprint in the door with all of the underlying components that are necessary to take the city fully digital. With Tyler Technologies, this will get us HR and finance, and then from here, what's not included in this number, I just want to make sure that everyone understands, if we decide later to put in municipal development, water, and other of those kinds of components, those will come at a later date, and of course, those will be additional costs. But this will get us the foundation for the next 5 years.
So, $1.8 million is one time, and then another $1 million over a 5-year period.
That's right. Yes, that's correct. And so the one-time includes infrastructure or, capital cost, as well as the labor and whatnot to actually do the project.
Do I have any comments, questions? I think we talked a couple of weeks, was it 2 weeks?
It's been a 2 or 3 weeks. I will point out two things. Mr. Sims and myself were able to go back to Tyler. There's two things of note in terms of the concessions. One, I had mentioned in the previous one that we did get some significant discounts from them on their services and the software. The other that we have gone back to them for is this 5-year plan versus their normal 3-year contract. We insisted on a 5-year contract, and we both, Mr. Sims and myself, both insisted with them that we would not have COLA increases over the course of this 5 years. That is, in my opinion, a significant concession by Tyler, meaning they truly want our business, they truly want to be our partner, because that's not normal, especially when you consider that COLA increases for this year were incredibly huge, probably going to be big next year, and we will be protected against those increases over the course of the 5 years.
So, conversion, everything in place, working, when?
So, yep, so that's the slide there. So ignore the dates on here. These are not the right dates. The start date would be 7/1 of this year. If we get authorization to spend and we can start the project, that is the plan right now with Tyler. That might slip a little bit just depending on aligning resources and those kinds of things, but it wouldn't slip longer than a month, I would say. So either 7/1 or 8/1 will be our start date. You can see that financials is a 12-month project. We also have that we will run in parallel with that will be the public safety, which is the police department. Once we get financials done, then we can move to HCM, which is the HR piece, the human capital management. And along in there, we'll throw in Encode, which is for the courts, and get the courts all on a system that is fully integrated and nice for them, as opposed to their sort of hodgepodge solution that they've got today.
Just basically think of this as by the end of FY '24, right? So end of September 2024, that's basically the date where we're going to be able to say our entire financial system, our entire police department system and our entire human resources system will all be up on modern technology. I cannot tell you how important that is for our staff to be able to be in this modern world. Our staff expect it, our staff deserve it, and that's part of where we're going here.
So human resources is delayed because of the financials?
That's right. So the financials is the base of everything. So once you get financials done, everything from asset management to accounts payable, you have all of that set and configured, then you can start adding modules. And the one that we feel like is the most important to date is human capital management. And then even if we decide, if we're already 16 months into this or whatnot, we're done with financials, and at that point, we want to consider start rolling in water and municipal development and those kinds of things, we can look at that then. If you'll notice in the contract, there's a number of optional services on each of those sales orders for the different pieces like Munis and Encode and Public Safety. And those are price protected. So if we decide to implement one of those modules in a certain time frame, then we'll get today's price for that, not tomorrow's price.
We need to move forward with you.
Yeah, and it is an action item for you tonight, and my little comment here is, remember that of all the numbers that John just showed you, some of those numbers are on a per employee or per device basis. And so we want to approve this contract not as a not to exceed, but as presented, because we do have pricing in here that if we add staff or add devices, then we would float up a little bit from this number.
And just one final point on the labor side for the city, which includes just the IT portion, that does include a 10% contingency, and all the rest of it is a 15% contingency. So there is a possibility that if everything runs well, and all of our stakeholders are aligned as we expect them to be and as they have committed to be, and we can move this along in the time frame that is presented here in the project plan, then we might be able to save some of those dollars at the end, and then we can spend them on a nice party or something.
All right. Does anybody have any questions? Is there a motion on item 9.1?
Mayor, you just said this was not
It's not,
no number.
it's as presented.
As presented. Okay, this is item 9.1. Okay, yes, Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve item 9.1, not to, as presented.
Just as presented.
Yes.
We have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second from Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem, District 4. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries by unanimous consent. Next item on the agenda is 9.2.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John.
Discuss and consider resolution number 2004, resolution of the City Council of the City of Terrell, Texas, approving and authorizing the submission of an application and the acceptance of an award from the United States Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, Patrick Leahy Bulletproof Vest Partnership Grant. This is going to be done by,
This is
Mike
going to be
Buellin.
Captain Buellin this time around?
all right.
Sir,
This your first time?
it's my first time.
All
Yes, sir.
right.
So good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'm honored to address you on behalf of Chief McKean and Terrell Police Department during this resolution proceeding. Our general order requires all uniformed personnel to wear a protective vest while they're on duty. Non-uniformed personnel are required to have one accessible at all times while they're on duty. Our current budget allows $8,000 per year for the purchase of these vests. They expire every 5 years. So over the next 3 years, we have to invest in 32 vests as they expire. So the total cost over the 3 years is $23,872. So this grant will cover half of that cost. So that means that we'll only spend $3,730 total for 2022, $5,222 for 2023, and $2,984 for 2024. So essentially, it's going to cover $11,936 of tax dollars. That'll be our savings.
Anybody have any questions? It's pretty simple.
Yep.
No questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
So is there a motion on 9.2?
Motion to approve resolution number 2004 as presented.
We have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velazquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3. Is there a second? Have a second from Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem District 4. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries by unanimous consent. Our next item on the agenda is 9.3, discuss and consider development agreement for the Cedars at Rose Hill Partnership.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. We did discuss this, excuse me, at the last meeting. We worked with these gentlemen, and they have stayed here this whole time to go through our whole process. We have worked through this agreement. Mr. Sims has been involved, myself, and of course Omira, because she has to keep me on the straight there. But we are good to go with this development. We worked through some things that we wanted to make sure they were concerned about after we had some more product that was submitted. But if you want me to, I'll go back over the highlights, but the part of the developers agreement's a really good thing.
We discussed this last week. Does anybody have any new questions for Mr. Fenner? Hearing none, is there a motion on 9.3?
Motion to approve the development agreement for Cedars at Rose Hill Partnership as presented.
We have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velazquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a second from Grady Simpson, District 2. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries by unanimous consent. Our next item on the agenda is 9.4, discuss and consider development agreement for the 128 Mellon Street Partnership. So we before you do anything, Charles, we had this one last week, right?
Yes, sir.
There was some discussion as to the motions. Here's the deal. I didn't hear anybody in favor of this development. Has anybody changed their mind?
Yes, Mayor. I actually went out and visit the property. I just have maybe one question for Mr. Fenner. Mr. Fenner, you said two houses. What was the sizes on those two houses?
18, 50, 100% brick on top, 75% on 100% brick on the bottom, 75% on top, 1850 square foot, minimum living space. And, 20,
Acres, is that the land is?
sir?
What's the acreage?
The acreage, it's a quarter of an acre now, so you'd have a 50 by, it's gonna be about an 8,600 square foot lot. Now I'm throwing out a bunch of numbers, and you know how that happens because I get in trouble. But it's about an 8,600 square foot lot when you cut it into 50 by 117. Let me get there. Myra, you're supposed to be having. Yes, 8,600 square feet, so it'd be a 50 by 172 lot.
So you will have some room, I would assume.
And our requirement for S 7.5 is 7,500 square foot lot with a 75-foot lot width. And so you're looking at the biggest difference here is really the 15-foot lot width on the front.
Do you know who owned that empty house next door, 126 Mellon?
No, sir.
Yeah, it's just an empty house. It looks raggedy. And two big nice homes beside that, but maybe we could.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about that before, kind of the difference in value. It is a buildable lot, what you get for one home on it. And what you know.
I'm just not sure that the new homeowner will come and say, well, the price doesn't justify it because I got a piece of crap house next door. So, I mean, I'm serious.
No, I get it. Yes, sir, I do.
But I mean, I like to see the neighborhood look beautiful and all the other houses up to standards. Maybe we can get code enforcement out there to deal with that 126 Mellon. But I'm pretty much in favor. We could move forward if the council would as well.
Okay. Anybody have any new questions for Mr. Fenner? So, is there a motion on item 9.4?
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve item 9.4.
There's a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2, to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a second from Mayor Ronnie Velazquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
Who knows? The mayor votes in the affirmative, pass 3-2. Next item on the agenda, 9.5, discuss and consider a final plat for DM Estates, Lot 6A and 6B, being a replat for Lot 6 being 4.725 acres out of the Philip Walker Survey, abstract number 569, City of Terrell, ETJ, Kaufman County, Texas, also known as 1578 County Road 163B, FP 22-09. This is Mr. Fenner. Go ahead.
Mayor, council, this is actually really simple. It's in the ETJ. There's no zoning requirements. There's just a requirement to plat the property. They did have plenty of acreage out there to do that. Lot 6A will be 3 acres, and then the other lot will be 1.6 acres. They meet those standards for the septic. They had to create a flag lot, but I believe this was something of a family situation, and really and truly, we don't have any say over it. They've met the specification, technical specification, so we recommend approval. P&Z recommended approval.
Vote 8-0.
Yes, sir.
All right. Next item, anybody have any questions of Mr. Fenner on this item? Hearing none, is there a motion on item 9.5?
Move to approve the final plat for DNM Estates, Lot 6A and 6B, being a replat of Lot 6 being 4.725 acres out of the Philip Walker Survey, abstract number 569, City of Terrell, ETJ, Kaufman County, Texas, also known as 1578, County Road 136B, as presented.
Thank you, Councilwoman. We have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velazquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a second from Grady Simpson, District 2. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries by unanimous consent of the council. Next item on the agenda is 9.6, discuss and consider a construction plat for Creekside Phase 5 for 98 residential lots being 33.829 acres, and Phase 6 for 45 residential lots being 11.198 acres out of the J. McIntosh Survey, abstract number 340, City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, CP 22-03. Mr. Fenner.
Yes, Mayor, Council. Excuse me. We have dealt with Creekside on several occasions. As you know, this development in 2017 was created in a phased development, 7 phases. Had a developer's agreement and a couple of amendments to it. So we've had to deal with this on several different occasions of how we take their green space and the drainage and all the stuff that we were having to get through the developer's agreement. Each phase had its own set of averaged lot sizes, and so we've been through that. We are working through some issues right now on water line easements and rerouting those, but as far as everything else, this works out. As just real quick, the Phase 5 and 6 is located off Creekside Drive, and Phase 6 is located off North Wanda Drive. Phase 5 will be the 6,000 square foot lots that we agreed upon, and a majority of the 50-foot lot widths. And Phase 6 will be the 7,200 square foot lots with the majority of the 60-foot widths. Just as anything else, they'll have to go in, this is a construction plat, they'll have to build those public improvements, any drainage issues taken care of on some of these retaining walls that they had built previously and things like that. So we are good to go. P&Z recommended 8-0.
8-0.
Yes, sir.
All right. Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Fenner? Hearing none, is there a motion on 9.6?
I'll make a motion that we approve item 9.6.
I have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2. Is there a second? I have a second from Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem, District 4. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all
Discussion?
those- Question?
Just let it be known, I do not care for properties that are 50-foot widths. We continuously go against the zoning standards that we put in place. That's my comment.
Comment noted. Any further discussion? All those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Grady's a yes,
Yes,
and Stephanie?
Stephanie's
is-
yes.
Any against?
Nay.
Nay?
2-2.
2-2. The mayor votes in the affirmative. That motion passes 3-2. Next item on the agenda, 9.7, discuss and consider construction plat for Terrell Assisted Living, being 5.179 acres, city of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas. The property is located east of Poetry Road and north of State Street. Mr. Fenner.
Mayor, council, this particular piece of property was rezoned, developed a PD for it. It was pulled out of the Creekside development, the one we just approved in phases. As you know, we did that developers agreement 6 years ago, 5 years ago, whenever it was, for that whole thing. They had this spot here set up, and they ended up selling it to this development that was gonna be assisted living and a memory care facility, so they'll be split. And so we've gone back and forth with them, and it made an impact on some drainage issues and so forth with the Creekside. We had to get everything lined up. We've had several meetings with these folks, with Creekside Engineering and the Poetry Assisted Living people. So at this point with the construction plat, we're all good. We're where we need to be. And they're good to go to move forward through the public improvement process so we can move on to the final plat process. So we do recommend, but the P and Z recommended to vote by a vote of 7-0. And the reason it was 7-0 is because somebody stepped out. Go to the bathroom or something.
For no
So they weren't
legal
part of,
reason for.
no legal reason. They were part of the vote.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Fenner on 9.7?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just trying to catch up here from scrolling down. I see it's a construction plat, technical specifications with the PD site plan. And I know it's a construction plat. Remind me what the size of the homes will be for the senior living center? Or is it?
So they'll have the memory care. We had the,
Think one big enclosed building. Think one large building.
it's one, well, and the memory care is separated from the assisted living. And we had, the minimum lot size go to, are you, Mayor, really? Myra, come on up here. Good.
I couldn't pass that up.
Myra, can you come up here?
Can I say that I think agenda item page 420, I'm sorry, go
And I
ahead.
do want to clarify, but I was still thinking about the last item. So I was trying to catch up with this item here and thank you for the reminder that it is a memory care / long-term assisted living facility. I am looking at the design here. But any additional information you have on, there's a reminder for me on the size of the facility or the number of rooms would certainly be useful.
There's, the idea through the PD was the 60 and 60. It was separate for assisted living, and then there would be a separate section for the actual memory care where they have to be more secure. That was what the PD was approved for.
And this, do we know who they're looking at to have manage the facility and what the history is there?
The applicant is the management company. They actually have several of these, so.
They've got, I'm going to say Gainesville and Tyler
They have-
locations. Does that sound?
And one further south too, I believe. And so that's, and I would have had that in a staff report. When we did this PD back in 2020, and that was part of the report. I didn't include that staff report. I just included the actual ordinance that approved the entitlement for this to be assisted living.
Know that, we, seems like we don't have enough, we could always, with the growing population of, our baby boomers, and the need for facilities like this, I look forward to having, something like this in the city of Terrell, in addition to what we already have in the community. I think sometimes community members are traveling many miles, to different sides of the Metroplex or the state to be able to find, a facility.
I think, excuse me, I was just talking to one of the doctors in Kaufman County, and he had to bring his mom from far west Texas, and they put him in a Sunnyvale facility, and there's not many around that will be of this quality, I believe. So we're starting to get our fair share of the upper quality, and we don't have a lot of memory care knocking on the door, but we do have assisted living. And of course, we're getting a ton of senior living, which is just senior living. But we're getting some knocks on the door about the assisted living, so it gives us the opportunity to upgrade and be a place where people want to be. So this will be a nice facility from the research we did and what we saw.
Anyone else? Is there a motion on 9.7?
May I make a motion that we approve item 9.7?
Have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2. Is there a second? Have a second from Stephanie Holmes Thomas, Deputy Mayor Pro Tem, District 4. Is there any further discussion? Any further discussion? Did I take a vote, man?
No, you haven't yet. No, it's time to
I
vote,
haven't.
Mayor.
Get your cup
So
of
I have a
coffee.
motion and a second,
Yes, you do.
right? All those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries by a unanimous vote of the council. Next item on the agenda is yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 9.8 is to discuss and consider a final plat for Terrell Senior Living Addition Phase 3, Lot 1, Block 1, being 11.7972 acres out of the J.C. Hale Survey, abstract number 202, City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas. The property is located at the southeast corner of Rockwall Avenue and Windsor Avenue, FP 22-07.
Thank you, Mr. Gregg. This, we've worked on for quite some time now. There was a PD done for this property, for the senior living. This would be the third phase of the senior terraces. We made it through, with the PD, and how the site was gonna be laid out was gonna be very similar to what they have already done. They said that they had a waiting list of 2 years, so they needed to move forward. And some of the financing, when these guys go through this, is a little different. If they go through HUD financing and stuff, it takes a while. So we have been working through this. Now, our P&Z did approve a construction plat for the property because that's the design layout. The fire lanes are, shown on the plat, and that's what lays it out for pre-construction. But we did need to act on the final plat. And we have been going back and forth with the terraces for about a year now, and we're gonna get there. But we don't have a letter of security, a surety bond, or anything for the public improvements, nor do we have any participation with the Windsor extension that's gonna be built that is on the western perimeter of their building, and so their site, so we're having to work through that. So with that being the case, we recommended denial of the final plat, and the P and Z did recommend denial, but that does not mean that we're not working with them to get through this process.
Okay. So we're gonna, approve the recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission.
To deny.
To deny is what, the question. On item,
And tell me why-
9.8.
Why did they deny it? Tell me again.
So,
They said,
because there is no, when you do a final plat, that means all the public improvements are supposed to be done. Fire lanes, everything, the hydrants and all that. In this case, also part of this deal is when you subdivide property, you're responsible for a portion of that road. Okay, and that was Windsor Road. They were not gonna participate in that because they didn't have a driveway coming off that road. Now Windsor, the Woodlands want to build that whole
I think you're
element,
saying
so.
Windsor when you mean Rockwall.
Amira, you wanna come up here? Yes. So the southern extension there, okay? And we first started this early last year about bonding, just putting up a bond for those public improvements so they could get the final plat if they needed to do that for the HUD financing, because it takes a while. We were gonna work through them and do whatever we could. At that time, they decided that they didn't believe that they had to do the bond. And so months went by, and then we worked through some construction processes of how we could actually do, how we could serve them domestic water, and then the fire flow to these buildings. They had a different concept, so we had about 4 months of meeting with them, with the fire department, everything. And then at that point, we were done. We figured out that we would work through that process. But they would still have to build the public improvements because the construction plat gets approved and it sets the stage. Our engineering approves it. Everything's good. It sets the stage for construction, and they either build those improvements or they put up a letter of credit for them to get the final plat approved. And they didn't do that.
well, it's just some things they didn't do, but it could be done and it's
And-
workable. It's
And
just-
we want to work through it with them. And the other part of that was that they would have to build half the portion of rock wall. The Woodlands will have, so we're gonna go ahead and let the Woodlands do it all. And then we would have to figure out a way to come back with the impact fees from this development and work it out. But it's being worked on, but the big thing is, there are some HUD, the way they're financing it, it takes a while for them, and a HUD attorney doesn't believe on some side that they necessarily have to bond some things. So we're just not finished with it yet, but we're working through it.
So
And
the
we'll make,
final plat is not premature.
it's premature. Yes, sir.
I do think we need these residences.
Yes, we do.
Senior,
Yes, sir.
but they have to follow the process, and whatever that entails, I understand.
And we're working through it with them. We're being creative on you saw the rezoning earlier this evening with the property south of there. We're gonna have to get creative because we'd like to bring Rockwall all the way down, which that property is just south of this property. And then we'll work through that. So that's one piece of the public improvement. The other piece is just the internal stuff that they need to make sure it's taken care of.
I'm just puzzled why they would present a premature.
Because sometimes you can get it passed.
Do they just-
I can tell you, I think that there's a lot of correspondence that has gone over, there's a lot of correspondence that's gone through Fire, McKeska, our assistant engineer Steve, ourselves, and, one letter that was written from the engineer, Kimley Horn, that's doing this, was that it wasn't necessarily specified that they weren't gonna build rock wall, but they weren't planning on it, and so they wanted to come back to that. But even before that, they said, we don't have to put up a letter of credit necessarily, for public improvements. And I said, okay, let's sit down and work out something else, because then I'll have to present that to council. So, that hasn't happened, and it's all a part of their financing. We could work through that if HUD, if their financing, just like a lot of other places, require you to have a final plat recorded in hand to get the financing. Because we had that issue with the apartment complex behind TVCC, they went HUD financing, and it went down too. So you can, the HUD financing a little harder to do for some people, but we still need some guarantees.
That's good.
And Charles, I did you, I hear and you sound like you positive that they may be moving in the right direction, that we need them to make sure that there's a guarantee to approve this final platform. And while I hear that positivity in you, I'm also hearing, that the applicant hasn't followed through or been as prepared as they could have. I do have some, I didn't reach out to this applicant regarding this concern, but I've reached out to the applicant and staff members in the past, and at first, I was able to get in contact with them, but after then, I just had no response from them. So there's a couple red flags for me regarding kind of what's been transpiring in the last, maybe 1 to 2 years with the applicant. Maybe it's just something internal that they've been dealing with. But certainly, those are red flags for me. Should this not move forward with the financing from HUD, then it sits as a empty lot until somebody else is able to, or maybe they're able, maybe they're able to get a different type of financing, or move forward with what we need them to. But without HUD, and then, stick with me here as I'm working through some of this.
I understand.
Or have a different applicant build something like what we're hoping to see, more senior housing, which we have some senior housing coming right across the street, kind of across the street from where this location would be. So we have some more senior housing coming, but I was really excited about this project when it first came forward, and seemed to start off a good relationship with the applicant, and then from there I've been disappointed in the process.
Well, to help them out a little bit, they did have a changeover a little bit. A gentleman that used to work with us here with the senior housing that was out of Arizona, he passed, I believe. And so there's a new guy that had come in to this, and he was into the, just really focused in on the financing part. And so there's a lot more to do than just financing. And so we've been working through that. And I know it can get difficult during that process, because we've talked to other guys. We talked to the developer that did the Woodlands, that actually did the development, not the builder now, but he's the one that did stuff at the harbors and the Kingsbury and all that. And he did some HUD financing for the harbors down in Rockwall. And it'll take you a long time on some of that stuff. And so you have to just work through it. But there were some personnel changes during this past couple of years too. And so it was more focused on financing. And so we're working with them. We want it to happen. Yep. We're close. Because we spent like 3 months working on the new way to feed these individual complexes with water and fire.
So comment from, I'm sorry, Charles, comment from District 5. It sounds like they're going through some internal trouble, but I'd also say, man, I hope they're not playing a game of let's just wear out council and wear out staff over a long duration of time, and then we don't have to do the needed infrastructure. So my comment from District 5 is hold their feet to the fire. If they have responsibilities for infrastructure, just because I want a senior living doesn't mean that they can skate by on getting away with not putting in their own infrastructure.
Yeah, I'm encouraged. Sounds like you've been working with them and will continue to work with them. So I applaud you on that, but I just think it's not totally, it's just not right now.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
I think that's a great way of phrasing it, because my comment is I believe they're very sincere, and they're just not quite experienced enough to get the ball across the goal line right now, but we'll help them and we'll get there.
So, the motion needs to be to,
Deny the.
no, we need
Just
to
accept
approve
the
the Planning and Zoning Commissioner's recommendation to deny the final plat. That's the motion that we need. Okay? Any further discussion? So is there a motion on item 9.8?
Move to accept the Planning and Zone Commission's denial of the final plat for Terrell Senior Living Addition Phase 3.
Thank you. We have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velazquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a second from Grady Simpson, District 2. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes by unanimous consent of the council. Item 9.9.
Item 9.9, Mr. Mayor, discuss and consider construction plat for Vasquez Edition, Block 16, 17, 18, and part of 15, being 5.879 acres, City of Terrell, Coffin County, Texas, also known as 500 East Grove Street, CP 22-04.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Gregg. This is the part of the construction plat requirement with the SUP that we had with the trucking repair company. And of course, as the construction plat is submitted, we're looking at it for technical sufficiency, and it meets that requirement. There's no need for extension of any other roads that we do have some right-of-way, or no need for drainage or anything like that from engineering standpoint. So we're good with the construction plat.
Anybody have any questions of Mr. Fenner on the construction plat? Is there a motion on 9.9?
Motion to approve the
Have a
wrong
mo-
item. Motion to approve the construction plat for Vasquez Addition Block 16, 17, 18, and Part 15 in 5.879 acres, City of Terrell, Kaufman County, Texas, also known as 500 East Grove Street.
Thank you, Councilwoman. We have a motion from Mayor Ronnie Velazquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a second from Grady Simpson, District 2. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries by unanimous consent. Our next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. We'll take those together. Is there a motion on 10.1 and 10.2?
I'll make a motion that we approve 10.1, 10.2 consent agenda.
We have a motion from Grady Simpson, District 2. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second from Mayor Ronnie Velazquez, Mayor Pro Tem District 3. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries by unanimous consent. Thank you, council. We are now adjourned. And it's 9:02. Somebody said 10.
We almost.
Say you